What's up, Culturalists? This is QB here for CT, and today we're paying a visit to the city that King LeBron turned into champions to delve into the catalog of one of your favorite slept-on singers, Avant. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe if you haven't already, and as always, don't be afraid to tap that super thanks button if the feeling hits you. With no mixtapes, holiday projects, or any of the like to mention, let's get to it. Number 9, The Letter. By the time this album arrived at the tail end of 2010, Avant had already been on what could be considered his best song of the year, which, surprise, is nowhere to be found here. That track is Brian Culbertson's Skies Wide Open.
Trust me, something about your love, baby. You got me.
That song alone has more Spotify streams than any single track on this 10+1 set entitled The Letter by the Cleveland Representer. As if the slide in quality from his 06 outing to 08 wasn't enough, this one almost immediately fell off a cliff, never to recover. Your Body is a Business is a standout here, yet it doesn't provide anything new that his previous hits haven't already. The follow-up track though, Wake Up, is something that the fellas most definitely at some point could relate to, whether they want to admit it or not. We can't be too mad though, he's only keeping it a stack. And somehow, some way, he's found a girl who can make him feel like Jesus. Well, excuse us. Got him feeling like he can walk on water, as he proclaims on the album's finale, which he does a fair job making his point. As for everything else, well, although he's clearly an R&B singer, Hot 16 is in fact ice cold and doesn't even feature 8 bars, let alone 16 from any hip-hop artist. Matter of fact, the only voice you're going to get on here is that of Mr. Myron Lavelle Avant himself. Body Police is flat out corny, Kiss Goodbye is forgettable, and trust and believe, if in fact you are that dude, you don't need to make a 4-minute song to convince anyone. The irony of it all is that the first track is called Graduated, but this album right here gets a letter alright, and that's enough. Number 8, Avant. With the sound of R&B forever evolving, AB was doing what he thought was his best effort to evolve with it. But the shift in sound, being just 2 years removed from director, turned out to be a bit of a rough transition for this brother. About half of the 11 tracks wallow in the musical trends of the day, with the other half sporting more of the earlier sound that we've all known him for till this point. To put it bluntly, most of the former is pretty cringe. So let's go ahead and get those parts out of the way. On a pleasant traditional R&B style Sailing, there's a line in there where he mentions that the fantasy gets the best of him, which leads us smack in the middle of the track list where we find Out of Character. He knew he was about to say some shit because the song starts off with that I'm about to fall asleep into a crazy dream type music. And before the first verse is even over, he's asking for some stuff that, posed to the wrong woman, will get him cold cocked into next week. Jump into that one on your own if your interest has been piqued. The cringe gets worse on the terrible pick for a single, Break It Back. Between the bad production and lyrics so awful that he immediately had to follow them up by saying, quote, in a good way. Add French pedicure to that trash pile as well. It's not all bad though. Trez Van sensitivity vibes radiate from Perfect Gentleman. Sensual seduction era Snoop is in the house on the club record Attention. And probably even better than the single When It Hurts is simply titled YOU, right in the mid-tempo ballad lane that Avant rides so consistently. The only fortunate part regarding this self-titled release is its relatively short length at just under 40 minutes. Thank goodness. Number 7, Private Room. Continuing from where he left off, Avant and longtime collaborator producer Steve Huff were looking to build on the previously established foundation of the first 2 albums, which is another way of saying it ain't breezy unless it's cheesy. Doubling down on the Ecstasy formula, singles Read Your Mind and the sappy Beg Fest on Don't Take Your Love Away are enjoyable and feel like they would have fit in perfectly with said album, whereas some classic soul inspiration is pulled from Marvin and Teddy P on Heaven and the remix to Read Your Mind respectively. The only female presence in this room can be experienced within Seems to Be, courtesy of Olivia, the once promising singing rapping MC who had a stint with Shorter Than Cat Williams. It's a decent duet, but not exactly magical or touching in any way. Those in the know wouldn't have been too surprised she popped up either, being Olivia was also in an earlier video of his. You Got Me and Wanna Be Close are some of the other serviceable ballads here, but this time we get a lot more cheese that funks up the room, such as Phone Sex, That's What's Up, Feast, and the utterly bad Have Some Fun. Never anything wrong with having a little fun, but ain't nothing but a headache coming out of playing that one. The bonus track, Flickin', is Avant's half-hearted attempt at the rap singy-songy thingamajig that, while a nice curve around the main thesis, could have remained on the back porch. Private Room was his last LP that pushed over 500,000 units off the shelves, and best believe it was purely off the strength of the singles. While it contains some decent moments, this room doesn't supply enough of the goods to entice you past the first night. Number 6, The 8. By this point of his career, Avant was keenly aware of what does and doesn't work for him. Luckily for us, he proceeded to shred the cheese in the 2000s and continued developing a more mature sound. It's just a shame that nobody is aware of this sleeper save for longtime fans. There was a single, pun intended, which was special, and while it's certainly one of his better singles out there, it apparently wasn't special enough to warrant a video. Alright, we're done with the puns. Both of Us would have been a good candidate for release, as well as Lights Off, and although we're not blessed with any duets on the 8, we do get Best Friend Part 2, which explores the aftermath of what began on the first iteration. The sneaky sex joint Come Get It, and some enjoyable up-tempo grooves on Find a Way. You feel his disappointment in the Dear John letter of no note, and Take It There is a great warm-up to lead into the bedroom or wherever else bedroom type activities go down. While the project overall lacks a few clutch songs that could have elevated past the mid-tier of his discography, the majority of the kinks from earlier works have been ironed out, with no major offenses made or outright throwaways clogging up the track list. So if you're a fan of R&B in general, it won't hurt to take some time to discover what the 8 has to offer. Number 5, My Thoughts. New millennium, new artist. Not taking a common route of featuring on random rapper X's underground joints before hitting the mainstream, Avant rather quietly entered the music scene in Y2K with debut single Separated from his debut album My Thoughts. As fate would have it, this project would mark quite a few one and onlys for the Cleveland-born crooner. Well, let's see. He was a one and only artist to release albums in association with the Magic Johnson music label. My Thoughts would be his one and only platinum certified project, and the lead single would be his one and only chart-topping hit on the hip hop and R&B chart. Yet, as of this recording, he's been in the game for more than 20 years with 9 albums out. Yikes. Better to have experienced those heights at least once than never at all, right? Separated was eventually remixed and added Kelly Rowland, yet the song has yet to be made available on subsequent repressings or on streaming services, so you gotta YouTube it to hear it nowadays. A teenage newbie by the name of Katara Wyatt, PKA Kiki Wyatt, also made her world premiere on the duet cover My First Love and would become a recurring collaborator. Playing things rather safe, this dozen tracks are his least sexually charged tunes, with other nice listens including Get Away and I Wanna Know. While nowhere near what would be considered a classic, with a number of tracks not aging quite well, My Thoughts was a solid first effort to springboard his decades-long career. And that's a far greater achievement than the majority of newbies that arrived in the same period could have ever imagined. Number 4, Face the Music. Okay, well, the music says You and I, featuring Kiki Wyatt, is unquestionably the best song here.
Oh boy, you and I, one hell of a chemistry.
You got that right, Kiki. If you know of a better R&B duet that dropped during the decade, then please let us know in the comments. This song alone let us know that there was indeed hope for Avant's slowly declining career after releasing back-to-back duds. The vocals and melodies are top-notch, and the track hung around in the top 20 of the adult R&B chart for 41 weeks. The joints immediately following it, More and Excited, make for a solid trio of music that sets a great tone for this 7th LP. Contemplation is heavy on whether or not he should cross the line on Best Friend. We get some retro soul vibes on No, and a more mature AV emerges on Gratitude and Don't Know How. The elephant in the room regarding Face the Music is that while most of what's presented is solid and enjoyable, you could just as easily be filled by simply looping the aforementioned trio of songs, starting with You and I, and then venture onto his other projects. Yes, they're that good. And on that note, we'll end this one with the Culturalist Theory PSA. Just because there's a track on here titled 80 and a 30, to paraphrase Snoop Dogg, ain't no loving good enough worth crashing your whip before you can get into it. Alright, moving on. Number 3, Can We Fall in Love? Avant's most recent release from the summer of 2020 marks his 3rd decade of being a recording artist and also happens to be one of his best yet. Again, echoing any other vocalist, only Robert Glasper, aka Mr. Who the F Is That, according to C Breezy, is a featured guest laying down some beautiful piano work under AV's Grown Man Talk on the seductive Take It Slow. Replay Ready Edible caters directly to his female audience, and you can add the ballad Nothing Without You to constant rotation while you're at it. Declaring his desires to be wrapped up in the sheets over being caught out in the streets, the title track is Avant shamelessly having the need for love. And after all he's done to obtain said love, the following, Not Gonna Lose, is his assurance that nothing's gonna take that lady away from him, which feels like the spiritual successor to 2013's No. We can only imagine if Kiki had joined him on this one. And miraculously, even the mild island flavors that serve as a backdrop for Irreplaceable mesh well together here. With next to none of the space being wasted within its 36 minutes across 10 tracks, quite frankly, modern R&B needed an album like this. Yet another one to fly under the radar. It don't take long to fall in love with this one once you've heard it. Number 2, Ecstasy. Making no qualms about what he wants, Avant returned 2 years after his initial outing with some truly addictive melodies on Making Good Love to introduce the 2002 album Ecstasy. Whoever directed that video obviously didn't understand the assignment, if you ask us, because AV's lyrics practically directed what the visual should have looked like. The bedroom remained his main focus on the follow-up single Don't Say No, Just Say Yes, another catchy mid-tempo jam that doesn't beat around the bush. Play Floetry's Say Yes behind that joint, and shit, you're good to go. Although he's trying to be romantic, Ecstasy has a somewhat cheesy vibe overall, but not in a particularly bad way. More of this can be heard on Love School, Thinking About You, which feels like what a grown-up high five might have sounded like, and Jack and Jill, which serves as his fantastic love-making voyage across America. Thanks in part to the DOGG, we have what's become one of the most cliched phrases ever on 6 in the Morning, featuring some rapper named Sean Don with a voice equally as quivering as Lucius Lyons' man. Avant gets an assist from OG Charlie Wilson on One Way Street, and thinking about doing something he admittedly knows he shouldn't do, the album ends on a rather sad note. Well, we would tell y'all the title, but we're not trying to get this video blocked either, so you gotta do your own Googles. While Ecstasy topped out in sales at gold status, chart-wise it fared significantly better than its debut, reaching number 6 and number 2 on the Billboard 200 and the hip hop and R&B charts respectively, with the charm effectively outweighing the cheese. Number 1, Director. Returning from a well-deserved hiatus, Avant built his 4th LP and himself as a so-called director, declaring the rental of any movies unnecessary when there's a perfectly fine lady in front of him to direct for his ghetto love scenes. His words, not ours. Looking to change up his game, AB, like Destiny's Child and his own father alike, he's ready to cater to his woman on the smoothed-out ballad This Is Your Night and answer to commands on the similarly silky Imagination. Let him tell it he either needs just 1 minute to get some things handled when it's in her dreams, or as he pleaded on his last top 10 hip-hop and R&B hit 4 minutes, to convince her to stay after she's already decided to jump ship. Speaking of hits, Director also happened to house the most guest appearances on an Avant project, with all of them being big names. Crossover appeal was definitely the aim when inserting himself on a remix of the Pussycat Dolls' Stick With You, as well as a duet with their lead singer Nicole Scherzinger on Lie About Us.
And I know I say it often, but I can't wait till we no longer have to lie about us.
The rap and R&B collaborations finally come together in good form on Exclusive alongside Lloyd Banks, as well as Weezy F Baby on the Jermaine Dupri produced lead single You Know What, before closing out on the socially conscious GPSA, or Ghetto Public Service Announcement, also featuring JD. Even the missteps like Mr. Dream, Right Place, Right Time, in so many ways, Avant was able to direct this 2006 album straight to the top of the hip hop and R&B charts. And when you take into consideration the balance and variation spread throughout, there's no surprise that it also sits at the top of our list. Avant has been up against some real heavy hitters in the R&B game, like Musiq Soulchild, Tank, and others. Check out their rankings here on the screen, or visit our channel for a full list of the R&B males we ranked so far. While you're here, let us know who you think the king of R&B of that time was. Once again, this is QB repping for Culturalist Theory. Hit those like, subscribe, and share buttons, and we'll see you in the next one.